Hello, kiddos. It's me, Mr. Brovicast. I'm gone at camp, but I still wanted you to have a chance to hear my melodious voice, and I figured I would get you guys started for the lesson plan for this week. You will see directly below where the screen is in that area. On my podium is the directions on a poster that I made for you, letting you know for today and for tomorrow, well, for the days that you are in my room, what it is you need to be doing, so you can always look up over there. And I've also put on the whiteboard on the other side the schedule for this week, and you also have the calendar and the calendar and schedule for the day. Please go ahead and get out your notebook, and you are going to go ahead and create a homework with the title that you see below. It should be called the novel homework, which will connect to The Outsiders. I will let you know that your next checkpoint you're going to need to get to is going to be to finish Chapter 8, which will be page 68, and that'll be by the beginning of next week. You will have the days in class this week to read, and then you'll have to have it done after this weekend. So make good use of your time. If you do not have your Outsiders book, you are more than welcome to borrow one from the sub. Either take up a shoe or take up your iPad, or if you have a phone, you can do that instead. Something for the sub to hold on to, and then she will give you an Outsiders book to use during the class period. Same thing if you do not have a writing utensil, she can also help you out with that. And that is fine with me. The notebook, you'll have to go to your locker. If you don't have that, there's not a whole lot I can do to help you out there. To download the homework for this week, you're going to need to go to my website and then go to homework files and then the Outsiders section and then novel homework. And then you can go ahead and download that. Once again, you're going to have 4 options that you can choose from, either the questions, the letters, the background knowledge. Your choice, whichever one you want to do. You are also more than welcome to do extra options for extra B points if you are wanting. It'll be due next week. I'm not sure of the exact day. I'll have to put it out. It'll be after the quiz. Quiz will be at the beginning of the week, so I'm aiming for Monday on that one, so it'll probably come due shortly after that. But this is to help you get ready for the quiz coming up on Monday. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to send information to me to ask, and I'm happy to do that. What I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and start reading with you, because we've not had a chance to do that yet. The sub can go ahead and jump to the spot I put in my lesson plans for each class period, so you don't have to listen to the other stuff unless the class wants to back up and hear the previous stuff, and that's fine with me. If not, then I will put it in my lesson plans where you can jump in at the different spots for the reading. I'm going to begin at the beginning of Chapter 2, and then we'll go from there, and there's a certain spot where I'm going to have to stop, and you guys will have to read on your own, but at least this will get you started, right? Right. All right. For Chapter 2, I'm going to have you guys go ahead and jump to page 19 so we can begin reading together. And I'm going to read and talk to you guys and then have you start on your own. It does begin, once again, I will come back to this screen every once in a while. We have the 3 brothers, Ponyboy, Soda Pop, and Derry, who the main character, in case you've forgotten, is Ponyboy, who is 14 years old. We have Soda Pop, who is 16, and then Derry, who is 20. And then Steve is his best friend, who is also 16. And then you have Johnny, who is his best friend, also at 16. And then Dally is just the older friend, and Two-Bit is the older friend. So hopefully that gives you some idea of all of the different ages. Chapter 2 is going to start Ollie. Dally will be shoplifting a package of Cools. If you don't know what Cools are, that's good. They're cigarettes. Page 19. Dally was waiting for Johnny and me under the street light at the corner of Pickett and Sutton, and since we got there early, we had time to go over to the drugstore in the shopping center and goof around. We bought Cokes and blew the straws at the waitress and walked around eyeing things that were lying out in the open until the manager got wise to us and suggested we leave. He was too late, though. Dally walked out with 2 packages of Cools under his jacket. These are Cools. Then we went across the street and down Sutton a little way to the Dingo. And the Dingo is a drive-in restaurant, which are real popular. We have Dog and Sons, A&W, Sonic, Rallies is kind of like one, but it's where you park outside and they bring your food to you. So it's sort of like a parking lot, and between a parking lot and a drive-through, and they have little outdoor ordering things. You can see at the one down here. Well, you'll park, and then they just walk the food out to you. So that's what they're referring to here. There are lots of drive-ins in town. The Socias go to the Way Out and to Rusty's, and the Greasers go to the Dingo and to Jay's. The Dingo's a pretty rough hangout. There's always a fight going on there, and once a girl got shot. We walked around talking to all the Greasers and the hoods we knew, leaning in car windows or hopping into the back seats and getting in on who was running away and who was in jail and who was going with who and who could whip who and who stole what and when and why. We knew about everybody there. There was a pretty good fight while we were there between a big 23-year-old greaser and a Mexican hitchhiker. We left when the switchblades came out because the cops would be coming soon, and nobody in his right mind wants to be around when the fuzz show. If you don't know what the fuzz are, the fuzz would be the popos, the cops, the police. We crossed Sutton and cut around behind Spencer Special, the discount house, and chased two junior high kids across the field for a few minutes. By then, it was dark enough to sneak in over the back fence of the nightly double drive-in movie. It was the biggest in town and showed 2 movies every night, and on weekends 4. You could say you were going to the nightly double and have time to go all over town. We all had the money to get in. It only costs $0.25 if you're not in a car, but Dally hated to do things the legal way. He liked to show that he didn't care whether there was a law or not. He went around trying to break laws. We went to the rows of seats at the concession stand to sit down. The nightly double is a drive-in movie theater. It's where it was basically a gigantic parking lot, and they would have a movie theater screen on one side, and you would sit out in the parking lot and you would sit in your car to watch the movie theater. And they had these little sound boxes that were out here that had little speakers on them that you would put in your car window, and that was how you could listen to them. They still have some around. If you travel to a couple of other cities, they used to have one in Noblesville, but they don't anymore. But you could sit in your car to watch the movie. You could sneak people in your trunk, although here they just sneak in by hopping over the back wall because it's dark. And it was called the Nightly Double because they played 2 movies back to back, so it was a good price. Nobody else was there except 2 girls who were sitting down front. Dally eyed them coolly, then walked down the aisle and sat behind them. I had a sick feeling that Dally was up to his usual tricks, and I was right. He started talking, loud enough for the 2 girls to hear. He started out bad and got worse. Dally could talk awful dirty if he wanted to, and I guess he wanted to then. I felt my ears get hot. Two-Bit or Steve or even Soda would have gone right along with them just to see if they could embarrass the girls, but that kind of kicks just doesn't appeal to me. I sat there struck dumb, and Johnny left hastily to get a Coke. I wouldn't have felt so embarrassed if they'd been greasy girls. I might even have helped old Dallas, but those 2 girls weren't our kind. They were tough-looking girls, dressed sharp and really good-looking. They looked about 16 or 17. One had short dark hair, and the other had long red hair. The redhead was getting mad or scared. She sat up straight, and she was chewing hard on her gum. The other one pretended not to hear Dally. Dally was getting impatient. He could put his feet up on the back of the redhead's chair, winked at me, and beat his own record for saying something dirty. She turned around and gave him a cool stare. "Take your feet off my chair and shut your trap." Boy, she was good looking. I'd seen her before. She was a cheerleader at our school. I'd always thought she was stuck up. Dally merely looked at her and kept his feet where they were. "Who's going to make me?" The other one turned around and watched us. "That's the greaser that jockeys for the /J sometimes," she said as if we couldn't hear her. A gas jockey was a person who worked at the gas stations, and his job was to run out and pump the gas for you so you could stay inside of your car. It was a job that you'd had. They charged a little more at the gas stations, but that way you could stay in there if it was cold or rainy. You don't have to worry about getting out. If you go to the East Coast, like New Jersey, they almost always have gas jockeys. They actually have to have them. I'd heard that same tone a million times. Greaser, greaser, greaser. Oh yeah, I'd heard that tone before too many times. What are they doing at a drive-in without a car, I thought. And Dallas said, "I know you 2. I've seen you around rodeos. It's a shame you can't ride bull half as good as you can talk it," the redhead said coolly, and turned back around. That didn't bother Dally in the least. "You 2 barrel race, huh? You better leave us alone," the redhead said in a biting voice, "or I'll call the cops." "Oh, my. Dally looked bored. "You got me scared to death. You ought to see my record sometime, baby." He grinned slowly. "Guess what I've been in for?" "Please leave us alone. Why don't you be nice and leave us alone?" Dally grinned roguishly. "I'm never nice. You want a Coke?" She was mad by then. "I wouldn't drink it if I was starving in the desert. Get lost, hood." Dally merely shrugged and strolled off. The girl looked at me. I was half scared of her. I'm half scared of all nice girls, especially Sochas. "Are you going to start in on us?" I shook my head, wide-eyed. "No." Suddenly she smiled. Gosh, she was pretty. "You don't look the type. What's your name?" I wish she hadn't asked me that. I hate telling people my name for the first time. "Ponyboy Curtis?" Then I waited for the "You're kidding," or "That's your real name?" or one of the other remarks I usually get. Ponyboy's my real name, and personally, I like it. The redhead just smiled. "Well, that's an original and lovely name. My dad was an original person. I've got a brother named Soda Pop. It says so on his birth certificate." "My name's Sherry, but I'm called Cherry because of my hair. Cherry Valance." "I know. You're a cheerleader. We go to the same school?" "You don't look old enough to be going to high school," the dark-haired girl said. "I'm not. I got put up a year in grade school." Cherry was looking at me. "What's a nice, smart kid like you running around trash like that for?" I felt myself stiffen. "I'm a grease, same as Dally. He's my buddy." "Oh, I'm sorry, Ponyboy," she said softly. Then she said briskly, "Your brother, Soda Pop, does he work at a gasoline station? A DX, I think?" "Yeah." "Man, your brother's one doll. I might have guessed you were brothers. You look alike." I grinned with pride. I don't think I look one bit like Soda, but it's not every day I hear Sochas telling me they think my brother is a doll. "Didn't he used to ride in rodeos? Saddle bronc?" "Yeah. Dad made him quit after he tore a ligament, though. We still hang around rodeos a lot. I've seen you two barrel race. You're good." "Thanks," Cherry said. And the other girl, who was named Marcia, said, "How come we don't see your brother at school? He's not any older than 16 or 17, is he?" I winced inside. "I've told you I can't stand it that Soda dropped out." "He's a dropout," I said roughly. Dropout made me think of some poor, dumb-looking hoodlum wandering the streets and breaking out streetlights. It didn't fit my happy-go-lucky brother at all. It fitted Dally perfectly, but you could hardly say it about Soda. Johnny came back then and sat down beside me. He looked around for Dally, then managed a shy "hi" to the girls and tried to watch the movie. He was nervous, though. Johnny was always nervous around strangers. Cherry looked at him, sizing him up as she had me. Then she smiled softly. I knew she'd sized him up right. Dally came striding back with an armful of Cokes. He handed one to each of the girls, then sat down beside Cherry. "This might cool you off." She gave him an incredulous look, and then she threw her Coke in his face. "That might cool you off, greaser. After you wash your mouth, learn to talk, and act decent, I might cool off too." Dally wiped the Coke off his face with his sleeve and smiled dangerously. If I'd been Cherry, I would have beat it out of there. I knew that smile. "Fiery, huh? Well, that's the way I like 'em." He started to put his arm around her, but Johnny reached over and stopped her. "Leave her alone, Dally." "Huh?" Dally was taken off guard. He stared at Johnny in disbelief. Johnny couldn't say boo to a goose. Johnny gulped, got a little pale, but he said, "You heard me. Leave her alone." Dallas scowled for a second. If it had been me, or Two-Bit, or Soda, or Steve, or anyone but Johnny, Dally would have flattened him without a moment's hesitation. You just didn't tell Dally Winston what to do. One time, in a dime store, a guy told him to move over at the candy counter. Dally had turned around and belted him so hard, it knocked a tooth loose. A complete stranger, too. But Johnny was the gang's pet, and Dally just couldn't hit him. He was Dally's pet, too. Dally got up and stalked off, his fists jammed in his pockets and a frown on his face. He didn't come back. Cherry sighed in relief. "Thanks. He had me scared to death." Johnny managed an admiring grin. "You sure didn't show it. Nobody talks to Dally like that." She smiled. "From what I saw, you do." Johnny's ears got red. I was still staring at him. It'd taken more than nerve for him to say what he'd said to Dally. Johnny worshipped the ground Dallas walked on, and I'd never heard Johnny talk back to anyone, much less his hero. Marcia grinned at us. She was a little smaller than Cherry. She was cute, but that Cherry Valance was a real looker. Y'all sit up here with us. You can protect us. Johnny and I looked at each other. He grinned suddenly, raising his eyebrows as they disappeared under his bangs. Would we ever have something to tell the boys? His eyes said plainly. We'd picked up 2 girls, and classy ones at that. Not any greasy broads for us, but real socias. Soda would flip when I told him. Okay, I said nonchalantly. Might as well. I sat between them, and Johnny sat next to Cherry. How old are y'all? Marcia asked. 14, I said. 16, said Johnny. That's funny, Marcia said. I thought you were both 16, Cherry finished for her. I was grateful. Johnny looked 14, and he knew it, and it bugged him something awful. Johnny grinned. How come y'all ain't scared of us like you were Dally? Cherry sighed. You two are too sweet to scare anyone. First of all, you didn't join in Dallas's dirty talk, and you made him leave us alone. And when we asked you to sit up here with us, you didn't act like it was an invitation to make out for the night. Besides that, I've heard about Dallas Winston, and he looked as hard as nails and twice as tough. And you two don't look mean. Sure, I said tiredly. We're young and innocent. No, Cherry said slowly, looking at me carefully. Not innocent. You've seen too much to be innocent. Just not dirty. Dally's okay, Johnny said defensively, and I nodded. You take up for your buddies, no matter what they do. When you're a gang, you stick up for the members. If you don't stick up for them, stick together, make like brothers, it isn't a gang anymore. It's a pack. A snarling, distrustful, bickering pack. Like the Socias in their social clubs, or the street gangs in New York, or the wolves in the timber. He's tough, but he's a cool old guy. He'd leave you alone if he knew you, I said. And that was true. When Steve's cousin from Kansas came down, Dally was decent to her and watched us swearing. We all did around nice girls who are the cousinly type. I don't know how to explain it. We try to be nice to the girls we see once in a while, like cousins or the girls in class, but we still watch a nice girl go by on a street corner and say all kinds of lousy stuff about her. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. Well, Marcia said with finality, I'm glad he doesn't know us. I kind of admire him, Cherry said softly, so only I heard, and then we settled down to watch the movie. Oh yeah, we found out why they were without a car. They'd come with their boyfriends, but walked out on when they found out the boys had brought some booze along. The boys had gotten angry and left. I don't care if they did, Cherry sounded annoyed. It's not my idea of a good time to sit in a drive-in and watch people get drunk. You could tell by the way she said it that her idea of a good time was probably high class and probably expensive. They decided to stay and see the movie anyway. It was one of those beach party movies with no plot and no acting, but a lot of girls in bikinis and some swinging songs. It was all right. We were all four sitting there in silence when suddenly a strong hand came down on Johnny's shoulder and another on mine, and a deep voice said, "Okay, greasers, you had it." I almost jumped out of my skin. It was like having someone leap out from behind a door and yell boo at you. I looked fearfully over my shoulder, and there was Two-Bit, grinning like a Chessy cat. Glory, Two-Bit, you scare us to death. He was good at voice imitations, and it sounded for all the world like a snarling Soch. And I looked at Johnny. His eyes were shut, and he was white as a ghost, and his breath was coming in smothered gasps. Two-Bit knew better than to scare Johnny like that. I guessed he'd forgotten. He's kind of scatterbrained. Johnny opened his eyes and said weakly, "Hey, Two-Bit." Two-Bit messed up his hair. "Ah, sorry, kid. I forgot." He climbed over the chair and plopped down beside Marcia. "Who's this? Your great-aunts?" "Great-grandmothers, twice removed," Cherry said smoothly. I couldn't tell if Two-Bit was drunk or not. It's kind of hard to tell with him. He acts boozed up sometimes, even when he's sober. He cocked one eyebrow up and the other down, which he always does when something puzzles him or bothers him or when he feels like saying something smart. "Shoot, you're 96 if you're a day." "I'm a knight," Marcia said brightly. Two-Bit stared at her admiringly. Brother, you're a sharp one. Where'd you two ever get to be picked up by a couple of greasy hoods like Pony and Johnny? To pause for a moment. That conversation between Two-Bit and Marcia is this thing that happens between boys and girls sometimes. It's called flirting. When you're doing it, it sounds hilarious, but when everyone else hears it, you sound like an idiot, which is what's happening here. They think they're sounding hilarious, but when you're reading it and seeing it, they just sound dumb. That's pretty much all the time. When people think they're being hilarious and flirty, they just sound like idiots to everybody around them. We really picked them up, Marcia said. We're really Arabian slave traders, and we're thinking about shanghaiing them. They're worth 10 camels apiece, at least. 5, Two-Bit disagreed. They don't talk Arabian, I don't think. Say something in Arabian, Johnny Cake. Oh, cut it out, Johnny broke in. Dally was bothering them, and when he left, they wanted us to sit with them to protect them against wisecracking greasers like you, probably. Two-Bit grinned, because Johnny didn't usually get sassy like that. We thought we were doing good if we could get him to talk at all. Incidentally, we don't mind being called greaser by another greaser. It's kind of playful then. Hey, where is old Dally anyway? He went hunting some action, booze or dames or a fight. I hope he don't get jailed again. He just got out. He'll probably find the fight, Two-Bit stated cheerfully. That's why I came over. Mr. Timothy Shepard and Company are looking if whoever so kindly slashed their car's tires, and since Mr. Curly Shepard spotted Dallas doing it, well, does Dally have a blade? Not that I know of, I said. I think he's got a piece of pipe, but he busted his blade this morning. Good. Tim will fight fair if Dally don't pull a blade on him. Dally shouldn't have any trouble. Cherry and Marcia were staring at us. Well, you don't believe in playing rough or anything, do you? A fair fight isn't rough, Two-Bit said. Blades are rough. So are chains and heaters and pool sticks and rumbles. Skin fighting isn't rough. It blows off steam better than anything. There's nothing wrong with throwing a few punches. Socias are rough. They gang up on one or two where they rumble each other with their social clubs. Us greasers usually stick together, but when we do fight amongst ourselves, it's a fair fight between two, and Dally deserves whatever he gets, because slash tires ain't no joke when you got to work to pay for them. He got spotted, too, and that was his fault. Our one rule, besides stick together, is don't get caught. He might get beat up. He might not. Either way, there's not going to be any blood feud between our outfit and Shepard's. If we needed them tomorrow, they'd show. If Tim beats Dally's head in and then tomorrow asks us for help in a rumble, we'll show. Dally was getting kicks. He got caught. He pays up. No sweat. Yeah, boy, Cherry said sarcastically. Real simple. Sure, Marcia said unconcerned. If he gets killed or something, you just bury him. No sweat. You dig okay, baby. Two-Bit grinned and lit a cigarette. Anyone want a weed? That's not weed as in marijuana. That's just weed as in a cigarette. Back before marijuana was popular, which is what this was. Since tobacco is technically a weed, it just meant tobacco. I looked at Two-Bit admiringly. He sure put things into words good. Maybe he was still a junior at 18 and a half, and maybe his sideburns were too long, and maybe he did get boozed up too much, but he sure understood things. Cherry and Marcia shook their heads at his offering of cigarettes, but Johnny and I reached for one. Johnny's color was back and his breathing was regular, but his hand was shaking ever so slightly. A cigarette would steady it. Ponyboy, will you come with me to get some popcorn? Cherry asked. I jumped up. Yeah, sure. Y'all want some? I do, said Marcia. She was finishing the Coke Dally had given her. I realized then that Marcia and Cherry weren't alike. Cherry had said she wouldn't drink Dally's Coke if she was starving, and she meant it. It was the principle of the thing. But Marcia saw no reason to throw away a perfectly good free Coke. Me too, said Two-Bit. He flipped me a 50-cent piece. Get Johnny some too, I'm buying, he added as Johnny started to reach into his jeans pocket. We went to the concession stand. As usual, there was a line a mile long, so we had to wait. Quite a few kids turned to look at us. You don't see a kid grease and a Sochi cheerleader together often. Cherry didn't seem to notice. Your friend, the one with the sideburns? He's okay? He ain't dangerous like Dallas, if that's what you mean. He's okay. She smiled, and her eyes showed that her mind was on something else. Johnny, he's been hurt bad sometime, hasn't he? It was more of a statement than a question. Hurt and scared? It was the Socias, I said nervously, because there were plenty of socias milling around, and some of them were giving me funny looks, as if I shouldn't be with Cherry or something. And I don't like to talk about it either. Johnny getting beat up, I mean. But I started in, talking a little faster than I usually do, because I don't like to think about it either. This next part, flashback, where you get to find out about what happened to Johnny the time he got beat up, and you find out who's responsible. This is where you get to start reading on your own. But I wanted to cover a couple things again real quick with you. Coming up, they're going to talk about some greasers that follow some socias that follow the greasers, and they're in a blue Mustang when they track down the greasers, and this is what the blue Mustang looks like. And then they talk about a Beatles haircut, which is a real shaggy hairstyle where it sort of hangs down over the eyes. Most of the socias had close cropped hair, so it was like really short, like almost like a buzz cut, maybe a little bit longer. So if it hung down close to your eyebrows, it was considered a Beatles haircut, and they sort of give some people a hard time about that. And then they're also going to talk about getting into a fight with a broken bottle, and I have a picture of the broken bottle there. And this is what it looks like when you get cut with the broken bottle. Not like a plastic bottle, but the glass one. When you smash it, it has sharp little edges to it, and you can use it to cut somebody. And then they're going to talk about one of the characters going off to play snooker, and snooker is like a type of pool game, like billiards. We have to hit the ball around, stuff like that. This is a fountain in the park, where they're going to talk about one of the characters coming up in end of chapter 3, beginning of chapter 4. A character starts to get drowned in a water fountain in the park, and this is the water fountain they're talking about, where a person gets themselves drowned because blub, 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 their head gets pushed underneath the water, and that's water. That's why they get to drown, not like the water fountains we have here at school in the hallways. Jeans jacket, they're going to talk about the fact that I believe it's Ponyboy wears a jeans jacket later on. So it's like blue jeans, but in a jacket form. So that idea. And then music they're going to talk about. They make fun of one of the greasers for listening to Hank Williams because it's real twangy country music. Google it sometime. You'll be entertained. And then to the point where the socials all listen to the Beatles and think the Beatles are super awesome, whereas opposed to the greasers listen to Elvis Presley, and they listen to him nonstop. And so that's the difference between the musics. This would be page 31 was where I stopped. There's a little spot there, and that's where it goes on, and you get that little flashback to the time that Johnny got beat up really badly, and it sort of goes on, and you're going to get the scene coming up with a throwdown between the socias and the greasers. You'll need to get to page 68 for Monday. So I'm going to give you guys the rest of the time to read. Make sure you make good choices. Listen to the sub. Make me proud. The poor choices you make here will come back to haunt you when I return. Thank you, kiddos, and I'll see you next week. And as always, be good. Thanks.